Hello, everyone. Lisa Starr joining you today with another episode of StarrCast. This week, we're delving into sort of behind the scenes on supplier side issues, probably because I've recently been at a lot of supplier events, the We Work Well event in Spain, at iSpa, where we saw suppliers for the first time together in a few years. And I always think that the spa buyers don't always understand what goes on behind the scenes and makes a supplier successful and relevant. So I've doing my second interview this week with someone that I've always admired for their business acumen. So we are joined by Brian McGee, the General Manager of Business Development for Dazzle Dry. Thanks for joining us, Brian.
Oh, you're welcome. Good morning, Lisa.
Good
morning, everyone, or good afternoon, whenever you're watching this.
Or evening, whenever you're listening.
Evening, sure.
So, Brian, I was trying to remember when you and I met, but it was been a while back. And I know that you had a background in hair and you kind of came in through the salon side. So I wondered if you could enlighten the listeners a little bit about what your career path has been like.
Absolutely. What a long, strange trip it's been. So I'm coming up on 32 years in the beauty business. And I know I look much younger for having access to better products, right? You know, good skincare, good hair care.
Absolutely.
It's an interesting long story. When I joined, I'd been out of college for about a year, no idea what I wanted to do. There was a recession on. I was painting houses and having a good time.
Yeah.
And two friends of mine were working for a beauty distributor in Minneapolis that was the distributor for Aveda products in the Midwest. And they had set me up on an interview to be a salesperson. And I went in and I interviewed and I didn't get the job, Lisa.
I can't imagine that.
The funny thing is, the person who didn't hire me, I talk to all the time, and I'm constantly reminding her that if it were up to her, I wouldn't have this career because she's the one who turned me down. But I ended up working my way into this company eventually, as I do. I started off in the marketing department. And in the 90s, distribution was very different than it is now. The owner of the company I was working for was very cutting edge, and he really understood that in order for us to sell a lot of products, we needed our customers to be successful. So we had designed a bunch of marketing programs, simple marketing programs for salons and spas to use. We had a referral program, we had direct mail program, all of these programs that they would use to increase their business. And he had broken everything into what he called the big four. And I still talk about it almost every day. So it's the four things that all service businesses need to pay attention to in order to grow their business. And I would go a step further and say, if what you're doing doesn't answer one of these big four, don't do it.
Okay.
So new customer acquisition, customer retention, staff motivation, and higher ticket sales. So all activities should be driving at least one of those things. And we had developed specific programs that I took out on the road. My first job was to take those out on the road with the salespeople who are selling Aveda and sell these programs to salons and spas. As it is in the beauty business, then I inherited some other jobs without giving up the first job. So I became a sales manager. We called ourselves coaches at the time, at a young age, to a large group of people who were selling Aveda, and then we had a multi-line division as well. And I worked in the Midwest for several years, started in Minnesota, worked in St. Louis, and then left that company to join another Aveda partner in New York. And I was sales manager for Lower New York, part of Connecticut, New Jersey, and half of Pennsylvania. After Estee Lauder purchased Aveda and things were sort of changing, and distribution was going away rapidly, I left. I did a brief stint as national sales manager for another professional hair care company. And then my wife and I decided that the good times in New York and the no bank account were starting to wear thin, and we were ready to start a family. So I took a job. It was a very strange turn with a contract manufacturer. And a friend of mine who's a recruiter called me up and she said, "Hey, would you be interested in this job?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Would you please go on the interview because I'm having a hard time finding anyone to do the interview. And at least then I can show that I'm getting them candidates." So the company was in Florida. I flew down to Florida. I went in the interview. So my thought was, contract manufacturers are the people who make the least amount of money, right? I mean, they produce something that costs $2. the brand sells it to wholesale for $4, and then spas sell it for $8. So that's the smallest piece of the picture and probably the most complicated. But I went down and I met with this company, and I liked what they were doing, and they had just sold off a significant portion to a VC firm. And it really, I took the job, moved to Florida, had a great time, launched my first ever mass retail hair care line. No idea what I was doing. Got it in 28,000 doors in a year and a half.
Wow.
And also built our contract manufacturing business. And then I got recruited away by our largest competitor in Minnesota. And to me, I grew up in Minnesota, and I had at that point a 2-year-old and a pregnant wife. And I love Florida as an adult, but I just thought I want to move to Minnesota, be around my family, and have my kids have that experience.
Exactly.
So we moved to Minnesota, and I worked in this very large 34-year-old contract manufacturing company as VP of Sales and Marketing. And then, as luck would have it, 6 months in, we went into bankruptcy.
Oh,
yeah. Turns out it is a hard business, contract manufacturing.
yeah.
Because
You were right.
34 years of building all of these brands only for them to move to somewhere else. A lot of acquired by companies who had their own manufacturing capability. And, lots of materials. You need a big line of credit. A customer issues you a purchase order. They want delivery in 30 days. You need to start acquiring chemicals now. You're going to get paid in 60 or 90 days. So it's a difficult cash flow business. So we went into bankruptcy. We tried to sell for about 6 months, and then sold the assets and shut it down. After that experience, which was really painful, but the best learning experience I've had in my career, I went to work for another contract manufacturer in the Twin Cities as VP of Sales, and I also ran R&D for a significant portion of that time. For about 5.5 years. And after that is when I met Lisa Starr. So then I became a consultant. And my good friend Alan Scher, who knows everyone, introduced me to Lisa Starr. I started doing some work in the spa specific industry. But in the course of my career, before joining Dazzle Dry, I've worked with everyone. I've made products for Louis Vuitton brands, and I made Mr. Bubble. I did private label for Walmart and private label for CVS. I made Bumble and Bumble products. So I've had a pretty wide variety of things. So my consultancy was based on sort of the fact that I know a little about a lot, and maybe not a lot about anything at all. So it was that breadth of experience. So I had customers as a consultant where when I started, where one I might be doing operations and another I might be doing sales and marketing. And I like that variety of work. In my consultancy, it took some twists and turns too. I started it in 2010, which is the worst recession of my lifetime so far. Hopefully, the worst we'll see. And people were not hiring executives, but a fractional executive was something they could do. So I was doing fractional executive work. As the economy got better, that shifted and changed, and I did a lot of different things. And towards the end, I was doing a lot of corporate restructuring. So I was working with companies that good brands, good people, but not a lot of expertise. And I would go through the whole company myself, through every department, and redo everything to get them on better financial footing and create a plan for them for the future. About a year and a half ago, Alan, again, I blame Alan for everything. Alan introduced me to Adar at Dazzle Dry. And Alan did it this way. He said, I have a friend who I want you to talk to. They're looking for someone and who can do sort of what you do. And it's a nail care business. And my first thing was, Alan, I don't do nail care.
Right.
And he said, I know, but I need you to talk to him because you know everybody and maybe you'll find the right fit. In my head, I was always thinking it's time to get a real job. Consulting was fun. Lisa's a consultant, but
it's nice to have a regular paycheck too,
and have coworkers, right?
Yes,
people that you can have lunch with if there's ever any time for lunch. But in my mind, I thought, who is that company I want to work with? Because I'd worked with at that point in my career, 30 years in, a wide variety of people, and it was important to me that it was a smaller company that could become big. I had just finished a stint as contract CEO for an Australian biotech company who had a hair care line in the US. And I loved that hair care line was super based in science, and it was a unicorn. I
Mm.
didn't love that COVID happened right after I started and blew
Yeah.
up my business model. But I love the idea of working with a unicorn, and I love the idea of a company that manufactures their own products, even though I'm sure some people listening to this who have heard me talk in the past, to them specifically, I've told them not to manufacture. If you're a unicorn, it is important to manufacture your own products,
Yes.
as long as you do it right.
Right.
Follow quality and GMP and all of that. So, and I wanted to work for a company that had a proven track record. So in a small market, and that when I started talking to Dazzle Dry, they had just experienced the largest growth year in the 12, 13 years at that time that they had been around, and in large part due to COVID. When COVID shut us all down, the public still said, I want to do my nails.
Right.
And they found us and bought our product.
And didn't you guys like whip up some kits or something for people?
Yeah. So we had, our whole product line is based on a manicure system. So you have to prep the nails. There's a base coat, then the lacquer, then the top coat. It's easier than I'm making it sound. But we started selling them in mini kits. So, and could you believe I don't have one to show?
I can't believe it.
Here's a mini bottle, and this top secret, this color is launching in November. So no, this color is launching in August. So anyway,
Okay.
so you didn't
Pretty.
see the
I
color.
won't describe it to our listeners, but it's very pretty.
Very good, very good. So and then we did mini flights. I do have one of those. So the mini kit looks like this, but the box is blue. And the mini kit gives you everything you need for 25 manicures. So it's sort of what we refer to internally as the gateway drug. So people buy that, they fall in love with the brand, they then switch to the larger size system kit. And you have one of those, which has the full size components in it, and full size lacquer. And people we're starting to do their nails at home, and they found that while they weren't getting the same quality they were getting in their salon, it could tide them over until the salons opened back up. So when I started talking to Dazzle Dry, their direct to consumer business was the opposite of anybody else I'd worked with. So it was roughly 75% of their total business. And then for most pro brands I've worked with, they'd be lucky to be 25% as a direct to consumer business. Then COVID sort of ended, or we all just assumed it ended and went about our way.
We just said we're done with it.
And while our retail business is still growing at a really good trajectory, now our primary wholesale channel, which is the salons and spas we sell to, it's booming. We're up by, high double digits this year over last year. The end of last year was up high double digits over the year before. People are going back to the salons and spas, and they want their Dazzle Dry. They use it at home and they want it in the salons and spas. So that's the shortest version, Lisa.
Okay. I'm thinking about with MindBody, we do a wellness index every year. And in 2021, consumers, they named 3 services they really, that were really growing for them. And it was getting your nails done, was in the top 3. Yeah. And I'm sure it's because we realize we're not good at doing it ourselves, right? It's not the same as it is when you go and have a professional do it. And we were rushing back to have that done.
It's not, I love that our lacquer lasts for up to 14 days, but most of our customers are changing it every other day. So it's not necessarily taking the place of going in for a service. It's giving them more options to do at home.
So Brian, I want to throw you a tech curveball here. Sure. I've had shellac and gel and, dip. And so, and all nails, you always used a base coat and the lacquer and the top coat. Yeah. So what's special about Dazzle Dry?
So Vivian Valente, the founder and president of our company, is a biotech by trade. She has a PhD in biochemistry. And she'd been working for General Electric and doing like semiconductors and things like that. But her science background was really problem solving. She was the person that people would throw problems to where they didn't think there was a solution. And she's a brilliant woman, and she worked very hard to find the solutions to these things. As her career at GE was coming to an end, her husband had started an analytical science company here in Phoenix. And he had a person come in and they said, I want to create a top coat for nail polish that cures under light. Because I have an idea for a new type, this is 20 years ago. And Steve said, well, I can't do that, but I think my wife could. So it was Vivian's really first foray into the world of beauty, was solving this nail issue. And she invented the UV curing top coat. She had the patent on it. She's since sold it. And she made gels even possible.
I didn't realize that.
After she sold it and gels became a big thing, she thought, well, why do we need a UV coat? Why do we need a UV light? What if I could invent a system that air dried in 5 minutes? And what if I could invent a long wearing polish that could actually just be removed with nail polish remover instead of being soaked off or chipped off? So then she went to the bench and invented Dazzle Dry. And the rest is history. She hired Adar and Silva, who got us into the spa category. And COVID got us heavily into the retail category. And then I'm here trying to move us to the next level.
Well, that's great. I do know I've had a few Dazzle Dry manicures and they are fantastic. I mean, they really last. And to your point, you don't have to have a grinder to remove them,
Right. Comes right off with regular nail polish.
Very good. Yeah. So a question I have for you, to the point you just made, I mean, you're managing a business that is D2C and B2B. How do you manage those two? They're somewhat competing interests.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting within this organization, because when I came on board, I think they were D2C by happenstance, right? I mean, they had a website and then COVID came. And previous to me, all marketing work was sort of thrown over the fence, 100% of it to an agency. So they had no one on the team who they would talk to them, but they had no one with any marketing or sales background at all. And they knew that needed to change. And we work with a lot of agencies. We had one, now we have 3 major agencies. We have creative, digital, and PR, all separate companies. And then we have a whole host of freelancers and other things we do to grow this business. But everything needs attention. So what I started by doing was saying, we are one business with 3 buckets of business. And my job is to fill those buckets, right? And that the direct-to-consumer bucket is pretty full, right? It still needs to grow. I definitely don't want it to shrink, but the opportunity in our primary wholesale channel, which is professional beauty, and then in our, for lack of a better word, I might call it prestige beauty channel, is wide open. So they're going to grow at a faster rate. And at some point, they're going to get more level. So even in the last year since I've been here, and in part because spas have opened up again, our primary wholesale channel, which used to account for, when I started, maybe 22% of our business, is now 30% of our business and growing fast. It should be matching, hopefully by the end of the year, it'll match retail without losing a step in retail. But then our prestige business right now just consists of Amazon and soon to be QVC. So we don't have a lot of effort in there, but you sort of have to align the resources with each one of those things. And one of the things to keep in mind, and I was just talking with Silva Nahabedian, our director of education, is I told her, you're the director of education for the whole company, for the brand. So while most of her work resides in teaching nail techs how to use our product, how to do natural nails, and she has a master's program on how to be a natural nail care manicurist, we also have to take our retail customers on the journey. We have to know that they're not experts, and we have to, have a journey for them where the first thing they see is the most simplified version of the instructions till they're comfortable with it. And then as they keep using it, they get better and better and better, and they can introduce things like stamping lacquers and dotting tools and things that they want to do, and putting different colors on every nail. And they're not necessarily going to start at that point. So we actually have a journey map for people doing it at home and a journey map for professionals, and they're very different. On the sales side, the sales effort, we've got a division for our primary wholesale. So we have a DAR. We just hired another person in Texas who's working with him to support our professional customers. And the marketing support for them is a separate budget. It's separate assets. We work with agencies on that as well. But at the end of the day, what we know, though, is all of it feeds the business, that no one part is more important than the other, and we need all of it. So, we're trying to, all boats rise with the tide, right?
So you don't see cannibalization of the pro category from people being able to purchase and do this themselves?
No, I really don't. And it's because, I'll use my wife as a good example. She loves to get her nails done. And she, pre-COVID, was probably twice a month. Post-COVID, she's getting back to twice a month.
Mhm.
And now she has access to Dazzle Dry, right?
Mhm.
And I've sold a lot of products my wife was never interested in, but she's in love with Dazzle Dry. She's got I think she has probably half of our colors at home.
That's funny.
And she changes her color almost every other day. Doesn't ever take the place of her going to the salon and getting it done. And she brings her kit with her because the salon she goes to didn't have Dazzle Dry. So she brought it with her. And now they use the line, but it doesn't necessarily take the place. It really provides, as a service level, so much goes into professional manicuring that people can't do at home.
Mhm.
The shaping and the buffing and the pushing of the cuticle back and the treatments, all of those things it'd be very difficult for a consumer to be anywhere near the level of a professional to do it. That doesn't
At least
mean
on both hands. You can maybe do one hand, but not the other.
right. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So good. Okay, great. Let's talk about, your history in hair and the hair side. And you mean, let's face it, hair products were the driver of beauty.
Yeah.
At least in the US. I think skincare is definitely surging now, but hair is a big category. And, you used to buy from a distributor who had the license in your town or state or county, whatever, small. And there were a network of distributors across the country. And I think it was 20 years ago, it was that way. And they started buying each other, and then the bigger money came in. And now what are we down to 2? I mean, let's talk about how is this impacting the industry at large?
Well, there's a loss of service for these small business owners. And, if you're a salon owner or a spa owner, you're a small business owner, and distributors used to be your friends that would help you with your business and cared about it. And I think that's gone away in return for convenience. There's a little more convenience to today's model. BSG and Salon Centric, the 2 big distributors, and even there's still some great independent distributors out there on the hair care side, but they have stores. This whole model sort of shifted. What came first was the selling of the brands, right? Was Arnie and Sedell Miller selling Matrix, and then all of these brands, and then L'Oreal USA formed, which didn't exist 30 years ago, and now they own half of the professional beauty business. And they make beautiful products and they do great marketing. But as those started to merge, the distributors came next, right? So then Sally Beauty started BSG, started buying independent distributors. Next thing you know, they cover the whole country and Canada. And then Salon Centric is a division of L'Oreal. They said, wait, we want to own that piece too. So they started doing it. While this was occurring, the salon industry itself as a whole was becoming more splintered. So in the mid 90s to about 2000, it wasn't uncommon to go to a day spa, get your hair, your nails, and a massage and a facial all done under one roof.
Right.
As the role of independent contractors and chair renters started to increase in the early 2000s, that splintered. So now you have hair color bars, blow dry bars, nail bars, facial bars. They might all be in the same strip center, but they might not all be the same business. And the day spas there's still some out there, and it's still a great business model, but there are fewer and fewer of them. And more of the professional beauty practitioners want to work for themselves. So they're finding ways to, Sola is a great concept where you get that pride of business ownership on a smaller scale.
Right.
And I think people love that as small business owners. But the service side of it, when I think to what we would do, I taught business classes to hair salons for 10 years. Nobody's really doing that from a distributor level. So the access to information changes greatly. But I see a big difference between hair and spa. On the hair salon side, the sophistication is in the brands and in the distribution. Very sophisticated, very big, multi-billion-dollar organizations. And everything is sort of pushed down the salon, pushed down products. It's, publish or perish. Here's our 4 new products this quarter. Here's our 4, and nothing goes away, by the way.
Right.
You end up with a brand that has 500 SKUs and 6 of them are moisturizing shampoo, and you don't know which, right? So, but it's all being pushed down to the salons, being pushed down to the salon. No longer is anyone trying to lift them up. In the spa industry, it's different. Lisa, you and I could open up a salon today in your town, right there, get a license, buy some used furniture, hire a hairdresser, be doing hair tomorrow. Opening a spa is a very different prospect. You've got plumbing and electricity and, soundproofing, and it's more expensive to do it. It's more technical to do it. So spa owners, the sophistication on the spa side is really with the owner operators. The brands are there too, but they're not so far removed. Some of the brands are there. They're not so far removed from the actual practitioners. So opening a spa takes months and lots of money and lots of time and lots of planning. Very, very different, even though they're both pro beauty channels.
That's a really great point that you make, Brian, that I'd like to expand on. When I came into the industry 35 years ago, I was a makeup artist, and I worked in a clothing store where I ran the makeup bar. I worked in salons, and I started my own line, etc. I ended up at a salon that was trying to become a spa because we didn't have spas back. This is late 80s, I'm thinking. So, hair was still the driver, but you had massage and facial rooms, and we still call those full service salons, right? There maybe don't have locker rooms or lounges, but you still get all of the treatments. And we had to, beg people to get massages. Like, they were like so suspicious, the clients, of what goes on in that room. I don't know what I want back there. One advantage we had at the business I ran was that we had a blind male massage therapist. The women loved that, of course. Yeah. So, flash forward to 20 years later, when massage is the number one service at any spa globally. Consumers got over that fear of what goes on in that quiet room and realized how great it was. But to your point, it's 2 different cultures. And even the way our places were designed was kind of the hairs on one side and the spas on the other. And you'll still see this today in your larger spas. Front desk center, go right for hair, go left for the quiet services. But you know where they meet? The break room. The break room, right? The break room is like the clashing of these 2 different cultures. You've got the hair salon, cool dudes with tattoos and cool clothes and music, and then you've got the quiet massage therapists. And so it's always been a challenge to operate these 2 places effectively. And then began the splintering, right? People were able to do their own thing, and they went off and had booth rental. Some states still don't allow it. Mine in Pennsylvania is one, but it is a thing now. And consumers, our marketing used to be, well, you can get everything with us. One stop. You can get your bikini wax, get your hair colored. And that was appealing. And now we've kind of gone completely the other way, where we've got these niche, brow bar, lash bar, blow dry, like just one thing. And they seem to exist fine. I wonder, will the pendulum swing back? Like, what do you think about that?
Every action has a greater, equal or greater reaction, right? So I'm guessing it will, just like fashion. We just had this conversation internally here. What are the spring colors going to be next year? We think that far ahead. We're planning all of next year's colors. And since everything this year is bright, my sense is that there'll be muted versions of the brights. Everything is sort of a cyclical reaction to things. I do think it'll come back, but it has to be sort of consumer driven. And now it has to be technology driven. So, I think that people want products and services when and how and where they want their products and services. This is why I think the Sola concept is brilliant. But we just did the Sola show. They don't have a lot of nail practitioners in that business. They don't have, it's still mostly hair. But under that concept of sort of a open cell marketing, having an open market of services available, I think we're kind of heading in that direction. So in terms of retailing, here's another lesson. things are bought and sold three different ways. Okay, so I mean goods that people take home with them, not services. The number one way is passive retail. So when you go to Target and you walk down the hair care aisle, they have probably 60 different brands, and each one of those might have no less than 8 products. And you have to look at the bottle and read it and determine, oh yeah, this is what I want. Or you have to say, oh, Lisa Starr told me to try this product. I have to find it there. Even though they have some beauty people on staff who can help you, the norm is that you're just basically making those decisions based on either what you're seeing or what you previously heard through marketing, advertising, or referrals. The second way, and that's 80% of how, maybe 90% of how things are sold. The second way is an open cell concept. And for beauty, that was really pioneered by Sephora. And
Nordstrom too.
Right. And it was based on sort of the farmer's market model, right? That we're going to be experts on everything. We're not going to be pushy. We want to have the best under one roof. We're going to brand it as us, even though, so the difference between going into a Sephora or walking into a Dillard's is, those names, they carry the same products, but the names are muted. They're on equal sized signs. They're not relying on the manufacturer to pay half of the person at the desk's salary. It's very, very different world. And it's allowing the customer to have the choice, but also engage in conversation with people who know what they're doing and what they're selling on their terms. And that, starting with Sephora, Ulta eventually got to that model, Nordstrom's. I think, even with Target putting Ultas in their stores and with Kohl's having Sephora in there, everybody's sort of embracing that model to sell. Right. The third way, which accounts for the smallest way people are sold, should absolutely be the biggest way products are sold.
Right.
And that's service sales.
Professionals, right.
Professional sales. So I can tell you, I taught hundreds of classes to professional beauty practitioners on how and why they should sell. And I'm here to say 30 years later that I made very little difference. It's a difficult thing to convince people to do it. But I would say to hairdressers that, okay, you have a customer sitting in the chair for an average of 30 minutes. They're staring into a mirror. They can see themselves. They can see you. They can see the product you sell.
They can see you using the product.
They can see you using the products. What they don't need to see are your kids, your boyfriend, your vacation pictures. So take those down. Now add to the fact that you have a sharp, deadly object over their head.
Oh, that's funny.
You think a car dealership would like an opportunity like that to sell cars? Yes.
Right.
People would kill for that opportunity. There's only 2 professions where you get licensed to be able to actually touch people: medical and beauty. There's a lot of power to that. So the consultative selling or service selling should be the biggest way things get sold. Clients come in and they want you to tell them what you're using, why you're using it, and all of that. And I don't understand why practitioners fall short of actually selling that. And for me, do you want to have them have a great 30 minutes or do you want to have a great 6 weeks?
Right. That's the point.
Only way to have a great 6 weeks is with your education and your products that they know how to use at home.
I was at the Data Driven Salon Summit last weekend in Nashville, salon owners, hair driven. And I gave a talk on this very topic of touching on retail. Like, can you send the client home with nothing and expect them to reproduce the style with water and their hands? And they all said, well, of course not. Right. Like, well, okay, but that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you let them leave without one styling product because they're getting them from somewhere and it isn't you.
Yeah. And it's the same with nails. When back in the 90s, when diversion got big and I was working for Aveda in New York, and clients would say, how come you're selling to that bodega across the street? And I'd say, well, I'm not. I could spend an hour talking about how diversion happens, not really that important. But how do you know what's over there? And they said, well, we go there every day. And then say, how many people go there once a week? Everybody raised their hands. It came down to every person in that salon went into that business, bought cigarettes, coffee, sandwiches every day. Like, did you ever talk to the owner and tell them that maybe he shouldn't carry what you guys have? You only have one product and he's selling it and you're spending all this money there. Maybe you could just tell him that's not cool and he would stop carrying it instead of blaming me for how diversion works. But I also think that the customer who finds their way in Walgreens to the SE display, who just had a Dazzle Dry manicure or a Vinylux manicure, or a Zoya manicure is there because you didn't finish the job. If you did a really good job, they wouldn't go down that aisle. If they had products to, and keep in mind that it's not going to take the place of the service for someone to do their routine at home. And the routine does extend to nails too. It's more obvious in hair and skincare, but it's in nails too. So your way to get them to avoid making terrible mistakes is through education and sending them home with the stuff they need.
So let's go further down that education road, because I want to revisit that topic you brought up with the disintegration of these distribution networks. Because to your point, I mean, when I started my first year as a spa consultant, quote unquote, was working for a hair distributor, the number one Wella distributor in the US, who wanted to be able to give something to their spa clients. They hired me to help them figure out, how do we deliver facials and massages and what's around that. We found one thing was that they were eager for help, the salon owners. They also thought the distributor should pay for everything when it came to education. So because they were used to that, but Brian, we used to have classes and you'd go in every week, and that because people go to beauty school in one of our 50 states with our 50 sets of regulations. This has been a theme on the StarrCast this month. And they learn how to pass their state board. They do not learn how to build customers or retail. I mean, other than the odd school like a Jean Madeline or an Aveda school, they're usually pretty better. So now who's going to feel that niche of taking people from I passed my state boards, now what, into being really fully integrated professionals?
Well, you see it, Lisa. You teach the classes at IECSC and at the hair shows, and you see that, they're probably well attended, but when you look at the amount of people on the floor who are opting not to go to any of those classes, it's shocking. And no one is having some classrooms centered around a cash and carry beauty show is not really elevating the industry. So, what is the master's program? I have a niece who got her barber license about a year and a half ago. She's practicing barber in Maine, and she went to the Aveda school there. And I was talking to her and I said, read it all, do it all. There are some resources that you can get. You're in rural Maine. She's in a small town up on the Canadian border. Doesn't matter. You don't have to travel to get this stuff. So much of it is online now. But access to it, it's there. We did a partnership, Dazzle Dry, with BehindTheChair.com last year, and we have an ongoing partnership with the Spa Industry Association. And those are really good avenues for resources, for information. But the beauty shows, not so much. The hair shows have devolved. And, it's sad. My first hair show was a Midwest beauty show in Chicago.
That was the best show.
And I was working the Aveda booth, and salon owners were coming up and buying opening order packages. Now, if you work at a booth and you have a $10 bottle of nail polish, all day long, you have people coming up saying, I'll give you $5 for it.
Oh boy.
Or which colors, and you spend 10 minutes on a sale to someone who then wants to buy it for less, or the students come in and they all want it for free. But no one is really leading the charge on that. And that's what I think is missing. That's the part that was lost with the consolidation of brands and then distributors. They might offer classes in their back room, but who's taking it? Who's encouraging? Some states you have to take continuing education hours, but it could be on how to use Barbasol, how to do better facials. So, obviously there's some people who are craving that advanced education and want more, but it's the culture needs to shift in order for people to understand. I go to hair shows and I walk around and I think, there's not a person in this building I would let touch a pair of scissors to my hair.
Really?
Yeah. But if you go to a Aveda Congress Festival, I'd let any of them cut my hair.
Right. That's true. I used to go to those too. They were like, everyone had drunk the Kool-Aid, man. We were all on the same page.
We call them jojoba witnesses.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that was so great, but we're talking 20, 25 years ago. Do you think today's spa has an unrealistic demand on suppliers? Do you think that they are asking for things that are not possible?
Yeah, I think, or this is going to be built into the price. Why do you think the products are so expensive? someone has to pay for education and the
Right.
free goods and the marketing and all of that. But yeah, that's not really changed. When I first started selling Aveda in 1991, I went out selling these marketing programs, and it was $75 for a pack of 500 cards, referral cards that each had 3 cards on it.
Mhm.
And they'd say, oh, give it to me for free. I buy Aveda from you.
Hmm.
Like, okay. But again, the math doesn't play out, right?
Right.
Because the distributor buys something for $4 and the salon sells it for $8. Who's making more money? Why should I give it for free when I'm trying to promote your business and make you money on things that aren't necessarily related to buying more product for me? It ultimately does get related to it, but that really hasn't changed since I've been in this industry. But I do think they have unrealistic expectations for it. We're a nail polish company in a skincare world in our spa business, and I don't think people understand that this bottle wholesales for $10, right? We're not Babor. An opening order for us to get a salon is great for us. A spa open is great for us. Our cost of education is equal. So if somebody brings on a Babor, they're looking at a $10,000+ opening order. We're at 1/10 of that. But the expectation is send somebody in and train my people. So we have to push back, or we have 24 regional education ambassadors out there, and we do send them in for classes, but we have strict compliance rules on what we will do in order to pay to engage one of those people to go out. We also then, because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of it is technology, we have an education platform that's digital, and people enroll in it very easily, and it's built as a gradual it's the journey, the pros journey, on how they learn more about our product line. So when they complete it, they get a certificate. And for us, it's great because they can, and for them, it's great because they can do it anytime. They don't have to close down the shop for 2 hours to have a class on Dazzle Dry or on a hair care line or on a skincare line. So it's easier to do. But the expectation of give me and provide this for me, there's got to be a cost to some of that. And unfortunately, the only way people are paying for it is by charging more money for their product, because it has to be absorbed into the margin.
So what's the way out? I mean, how do we help these end user businesses understand what their role is here?
Yeah, well, I think part of the way out is the digital platforms that we can engage in, and even digital selling. So Dazzle Dry, we're relaunching our websites within 2 weeks. They're done. We're just waiting to do some testing. And on our pro site, it's going to be gorgeous. But we sort of posed this question, like, how do we make our digital platform more user-friendly so that these people can, we had the education digital platform that's built into it. We've got a lot of great stuff on there. We actually went so far as to create a digital portal for new account opening that's intuitive. So you can input, I have 2 manicure stations, put the number 2 in there, it spits out your opening order. I have 2 pedicure stations, put 2 in there,
I love that.
spits out your order. Here are your retail packages. Are you an independent contractor or a spa? What size is it? And then you pick it. So it all calculates it. And then there's a discount based on the size of the opening order versus just giving free goods nobody uses or they take home anyway. So
what they get is more relevant.
Right. And we looked at it really from a practitioner standpoint. What is best for them? Dazzle Dry is really about giving women and men who use our products their time back. By drying in 5 minutes, you can jump in the pool after you use Dazzle Dry. You can reach into your purse. You can bang your hand into a cement wall and it might scratch your hand, but not the polish. So, we think about that as it applies to these professional people buying from us. How can we give them their time back? The old way of, we don't have distributors, and we don't have field salespeople. We have 2 people in sales, and then
in the whole country.
In the whole country.
Wow.
And so, and they're busy, very busy. So we open a lot of accounts every single day. But the old way of having to find us and call in or have us call back or schedule a time, we wanted to make it easier for them to be able to get involved in our product as well. So that's part of it. But I also think that, the responsibility of our professionals. So in 1996, 97, Horst Rechelbacher, the founder of Aveda, stood up in front of all of us at a meeting and he said, I'm done with trade shows. I'm done with trade publications. We're going to put all of our money into PR and magazine advertising. There was no internet, right? So,
Right.
and his model was a pull through model, not a push in model. So most of professional beauty business is push, push, push. So brand is responsible for educating, for selling, for training, for making sure these people keep spiffing, rewarding, all of those things that they do to salons just so that they will give it to the public to buy. Horse said, nope, we're going to the end and we're going to pull them back through. We're going to create a brand that everybody's heard of. So they'll walk into the salons that have our product on it. And it was brilliant. And I haven't seen a lot of other brands do that since then, but it was the jumping off point from going from a $50 or $60 million brand to a $120 million brand.
So what do you think was successful about it though? Like, why was he successful in doing that?
Well, he was the first. He was visionary. He had a brand that lent itself to it really well. Because keep in mind, people buy shampoo and people use Aveda. Aveda is a lifestyle brand. People buy it because it aligns. You see a lot more companies doing this now than you did then. It was one of the first where people had a certain lifestyle and Aveda was either aspirational to it or matched up to it, and they bought into it. Nobody said, I love, my chamomile shampoo. It's a good product. But what they did is they said, I love what this company represents. You see a lot more of that now. But when you have trained consumers coming into professional locations, the professional practitioners have no choice but to elevate their level of service or become, frankly, obsolete. And
I think with Aveda, one of the things was that there was good timing, right? People were beginning to be aware of sustainability and botanicals. And I do think that Aveda's imagery was just, the old like styled, made up way. His gave way to a more natural look. And maybe it was just the right time.
Yeah, I learned a lot of that to try to, put into place here. But timing is really important, how you project forward. So, a company like ours, and we could spend, tens of thousands of dollars literally printing order forms.
Right.
Or they could just put it online.
Right.
And that's a sustainability. It's also a smarter and more modern way of doing business. I just this week, we have a sustainability intern in for the summer with an eye to bring her on full time after she gets out of college.
That's cool. What will she do?
So, it's really a two-parter, right? So there's facilities, that's the boring part, right? So we have a lot of sustainability initiatives in our building here. We make our own products, but not enough. So she's literally doing an audit on the facility. She's just ordering recycle bins for every office now versus having one in the kitchen that people are too lazy, so they throw their soda can in their office instead of in there. Right. There's a re-education of our employees. We're a manufacturing company, so a lot of people aren't aware of the benefits of recycling, of doing sustainable things. So she's working on a facility stuff. That's actually the smaller part. The larger part is we do a lot of stuff, and we don't talk enough about it. We have these plant-based shippers, and they're 100% compostable.
That's neat.
And this is how our products ship to our customers. And we have customers say, that's awesome, but we don't really talk about it enough. So
and they didn't know, right? They didn't. Right. They're not buying it because they know you have it.
Right. So she's going through our marketing. She's auditing our marketing and changing how we talk about sustainability. We'll soon have emails every other Sunday on Sustainability Sunday, where we're talking about efforts we're making and efforts you could make at home. We're looking at joining into a recycling program that puts bins in salons and spas so people could drop off their Dazzle Dry bottles there for recycling. So a lot of it is re-education of our consumers and our materials, but I'm super excited about it because we do a lot of these things. We don't really talk about it. And it's important that people still align with brands that are in their lifestyle or aspirational lifestyle.
Well, Brian, to that point, do you think that will move the needle on sales, or are you doing it because it's the right thing to do?
Lisa Starr, you've known me long enough to know that I don't do anything that doesn't move the needle on sales, right. And I think it's the right thing to do. So yes,
it ticks two boxes.
It ticks two boxes. It's definitely the right thing to do, but it has to move the needle on sales too. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so consumer awareness, raising consumer awareness, and that's all that brands talk about now is building community, and like people understand who you are, and so you've got to get out there and talk about it.
So, on that point, when I joined, we had a very, and still have a very good customer service department, and I took a look at the work they were doing, which is not fun. The polish slid off. It chipped. I didn't do this right. It's a lot of nail polish, tutorials going on back there, and complaints. And my order broke or didn't show up, or your prices are too high, whatever. But about 99% of the contact in that department was calls and emails coming in. We're installing a chat bot soon, so all stuff incoming, and very traditional customer service, which is you hire people and train them to be problem solvers and then move on to the next, right? So you call Dell about your laptop, you get a nice person in India, and if they can't help you, they elevate you to the next person and to the next person, and then eventually someone can help you. But as soon as they hang up, the next person is already on the line waiting for them. And I didn't really see that as a good for us. It's not an opportunity for us to the whole thing here with Dazzle Dry is not enough people know about us. It's the greatest thing. It's the easiest thing I've ever had to sell in 32 years in the beauty business is Dazzle Dry. Tell a woman that there's a polish system that dries in 5 minutes and lasts for 14 days. Sold.
Right.
Can be removed with regular polish remover. Sold. Non-toxic and vegan. Sold. But we just need more people to know about it. So we pivoted. We're in transition right now from customer service to community management. So while community management traditionally for companies is how they manage their social media, and it is for us too, what we're doing is taking that team, we put in a CRM system that makes them much more efficient so they can spend more time actually nurturing relationships with our pro partners and our consumer partners and push more stuff out. We want to get to a balance, not 90-10. We want to get to 50-50, 50% incoming and 50% outgoing. And we had to build in some business models that make it more efficient, so it's not just doubling the size of the team in order to get there. And again, we're a very modern company. Not very many companies only have 2 salespeople for a whole division.
Right.
And one is sitting in the office right next to me, and he's been on the phone since 7 a.m. this morning. He'll probably leave here at 5 or 6 tonight and go home, be on the phone for 3 more hours tonight. But he's not in the car. He's not in the field. He's not dropping up. We send samples, but we have a different approach to it, and it's working.
Right. So, Brian, it's been fascinating to talk to you. And I think this is an interesting future that companies have to navigate, right? As we shift from those old models where the salesperson came by every week and counted your inventory and asked you what you need. And, there's pros and cons, but it sounds like you are finding the way forward.
I'm trying to embrace the modern. As a consultant, I helped a lot of companies through those critical mass points where those things that got them to the level they're at are no longer paying off. They're diminishing returns and looking for that breakthrough strategy, that breakthrough technology. Sometimes it's a breakthrough product. Sometimes it's changing some staff members. But we're trying to just keep pushing forward and projecting forward and being more modern and trying to meet the market where it lives. Because that is the future of our business, is meeting the market where they live.
Well, in closing, do you have any words of advice for suppliers listening, or perhaps spas, and how to not get caught in the rut of how we used to do things?
Yeah, I mean, for some of them, it might already be too late. For others, it's not. Embrace the modern. Talk to your customers and find out what's important to them. This is why community management. If we only listen to complaints, we're not going to get far in the business. If we talk to people who love us, they have great ideas too. So talk to your customers and find out where they want to be met with your product. When you and I started in this business, if a professional beauty product showed up in a retail location, everybody freaked out, right?
Right.
Now, it's not only that some of them are showing up there, and by the way, we have no intention of going into mass retail with Dazzle Dry, even though OPI, Creative Nail Design, and Essie have, but the retail products have gotten a whole lot better, and there's a big blurring of the price point. Competition, if you're a skincare company, if you're Eminence, you think, okay, Epicurean is my competition. No, everything at the department store is your competition. Everything at Ulta and Target and Sephora and Walgreens, Cetaphil is your competition. You need to sort of look at all of it and look at the full scope of the beauty business. People love their little channels that they operate in, and that's great. but you have to look at where we fit in the total picture of beauty business. So, we're a Dazzle Dry is a nail care company. We're high end. We're more expensive than most of our competitors. That puts us in a whole nother category. It challenges us to rise with our marketing, to be more modern and to look better, and to do the things that Horst did in the 90s that we're doing here. We're recapturing with great visuals and photo shoots that we just weren't doing before, and our competition is getting better at it too. So we have to pay attention to that. But where does your company fit into the grand scheme of the beauty business? And understand that everything changes. 12 years ago, we were all going to Blockbuster on Friday nights to get videos.
It's funny how it wasn't that long
changed
ago.
Very fast too. So always be aware of that. Always be looking for it. Do your SWOT analysis at least once a year. Plan your business, plan your future. When you have a plan, having a good plan, good executable plan with a budget and KPIs built into it, turns what could happen into what should happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you're running your business on what could happen if we did this instead of what should happen if we do that, you're missing something.
That's great advice, Brian. Much appreciated. I mean, there is a democratization, if you will, of industry, I think, in general, based on availability, access, the internet driving so much of it, the way people travel now, that barriers are come down, and we're just kind of all on the same playing field, which has its disadvantages, but it has some advantages too, to see. And you're taking good advantage of that with Dazzle Dry, it sounds like.
Yeah. Great to talk to you, Lisa.
You too, Brian. Thanks again.
Okay, take care.
You too.